Hey Phoenix fam, what's poppin'? Today we'll be installing our own ATAK server on a Raspberry Pi or any other virtual server. I will be showing you two different kind of servers and I will take you by your hand and guide you step by step through the process of getting your own ATAK server up and running so you can use it with your buddies. The server will be living at your house next to your router if you use a Raspberry Pi or in the internet if you use a virtual server. But we're going to talk about this in a little bit and anybody with the credentials can join your server. First, we'll be using OpenTAKServer, which is an open source TAK server for ATAK, ITAK and WinTAK. And it's very easy to install and very easy to use, has a good web UI and is my go-to. But after that, I will also showcase to you how to install the OG TAK server via Docker. A little mini disclaimer, I'm also really new to the server network Ubuntu world. So if I make some mistakes here, just point them out down in the comments and we can talk about this. I'm trying to do my best. I got this done now multiple times, but I hope, yeah, we can do it now when it's live. But yeah, jump in the comments and help a brother out. What we need. We have to think about two things. Yes, we can install this on a Raspberry Pi that lives at your house or in your office, but it is connected to your router. So this goes into two different directions. If you're really concerned about network security, maybe a Raspberry Pi is not your biggest option. Yes, Raspberry, it sounds really cool, DIY, blah, blah, blah. But for this instance, what I learned with my experience now is that renting a virtual server is actually way better than trying to get this work on a Raspberry Pi, which is totally possible. And if you have one laying around, that's totally fine. You should do that and try it on a Raspberry Pi. It comes later on with a little bit of like difficulties to set it up because if you use a Raspberry Pi, it lives in your local network. And you want to expose that local network to the outside. So people from the outside can go onto your ATAK server. This proposes a little bit of a security risk because you have to open a bunch of ports on your router that's at your home, which means you are open to the internet, to everyone. If you have the Dropbox equivalent Nextcloud on your Raspberry Pi with a lot of private pictures and videos, I suggest that you don't do this on your Raspberry Pi. Just rent a virtual server. I literally rented one yesterday from Strato and it's like $4 per month and the first 3 months were for free. So it's really cheap because we don't need much hardware. If you choose to use a Raspberry Pi, you need one with at least 4 GB of RAM. Otherwise it won't work. I tried it with a 2 GB RAM, it didn't work. So you need 4 GB of RAM. That's also what you need if you rent a Linux server. I got mine from Strato, but you can also use Hetzer. There's a lot of different services, but because we need a server with very low specs, it's usually very cheap. Plus, the advantage of renting a virtual server is that you get a static IP, which means that when we set up the server, you directly have an IP that is reachable by everyone on the internet, and you don't really have to try to get the ATAK server out from your Raspberry Pi, from your internal network out to the outside. This is a lot easier if you use a virtual server that you rent online. This is also maybe the better idea if you just want to test it out for a month or so. Just do an account for 1 month, pay like $5, like one-time Starbucks, and then you can just mess around with it. And if you don't like it, cancel it. You can use a Raspberry Pi, or you can use any kind of other computer, old computer that you have laying around. You don't necessarily need a Raspberry Pi. You can use your old laptop that you don't use anymore, and you can install Ubuntu on it and use it as a server or a mini PC or any kind of like small PCs now they use as servers, home servers as well. But if you want to try this out, instead of buying a $60 Euro Raspberry Pi, try it with a virtual server that is $4 a month and try it out first if you like it and do your testing. And then, yeah, maybe in the future you want to invest in something like a media server for your house. What server to choose? So now we have to think, okay, why should I use OTS, OpenTAKServer, or should I use the real TAK server? What's the difference? What is the feature comparison here? There's a lot of like small things. I think personally the OTS is really good for beginners because the UI is really good. It's easy to install and to get into it, but it also has a little bit of disadvantages over the big server. First of all, let's look at this feature comparison. It's also in the docu from OpenTAKServer, which is very nice, but we can see there's OpenTAKServer, then there's FreeTAKServer. That's what I talked about in the video before, where we talked about getting Meshtastic and ATAK running, because this is actually part 2 of our ATAK series. But there I talked a lot about FreeTAKServer, but FreeTAKServer is not under development anymore. But I've seen Slavin on the OpenTAKServer Discord jumping in and helping out people. So I think there's some friendly stuff going on. So I don't recommend using FreeTAKServer anymore. OpenTAKServer is way further in development and also works a lot easier. And then there's the Tak server. What are some interesting things to see? Definitely the automatic certificate authority generation, which makes it way easier later on to join your ATAK server, because you can just join from your device with credentials instead of importing a certificate that you have available somewhere online. It's gonna make sense later. Then the web UI is a lot better because the original Tak web UI is it's like really 90s, hurts my eyes all the time. It's completely strange. It's like super not easy to navigate, but you have a lot more functionality. If you want to use the widest range of stuff, it's probably better to go with the Tak server. One disadvantage of OpenTAKServer yet is that it doesn't feature groups. So you can't divide your users in different groups, which means everyone who joins your OpenTAKServer can see everyone. My example of playing Airsoft, you need 2 OpenTAKServers each for one team. So you can't have both teams joining the same server. Everyone will see each other. Doesn't work. How do you get around this? Either use the big Tak server where you can set up groups, or just run 2 different OpenTAKServers, one for each team. Then what I really like with OpenTAKServer as well is that it has Meshtastic support. You can create Meshtastic channels and you can use it as a gateway for your Meshtastic devices. So for example, if I'm in an area where I don't have cell reception and I have my mesh set up, I can have one node that is dedicated as a gateway next to my server or next to my laptop that is connected to the server. I give my laptop a hotspot, so I have internet connection with one node somewhere, and this then gateway node is talking to the mesh, and this gateway node pushes the mesh internal stuff onto the internet. So I have a gateway node. This works with OpenTAKServer, which is really cool. I'm doing my testing now and I hope to get it running for LightSim actually. So if I have internet connection, I push it up to the server. This also helps with sending symbols, because that is not so easy. Okay, too long didn't read. Start with the OpenTAKServer, get this up, get this running. If you get any limitations of stuff that you need to use, switch over to the OG Tak server, to the big one that you download from Tak.gov. But I suggest, if you're a beginner, start out with OTS. So if you want to use a Raspberry Pi, you need to be able to open some ports on your router that is at your home or at your office. You need access to that. Plus, I've been testing a little bit, and here in my office I have a Vodafone connection which has a special router which gives me internet through cable, which is a little bit weird. Here in Germany there's like some stuff, but what comes with this is that I only get an IPv6. I don't have a normal IP address. It's a very long one. It's a little bit of a different thing. It's very complicated to explain, but OTS, for example, is not built to be used with IPv6. So I had the problem that I couldn't reach with the DNS, what we're going to set up later, the web UI. It wouldn't work. I did some troubleshooting. I got it to work, but I couldn't get it to be working with the end user device. So with my Android, I could connect to the server. I got the handshake, but I didn't get any furthermore connectivity. So keep this in mind. If you don't have an IPv4, which is the normal IP you see if you Google whatsmyip.com, if you don't have that on your router, I highly recommend you to rent a virtual server. This can get really complicated. I'm not even sure if the normal big Tak server supports this. I didn't try it out because it was like one day of troubleshooting only with your OTS, and I was like, yeah, no, this makes no sense, don't do this. Also with the real Tak server, when we're gonna install it, it's way easier if you have a virtual server set up because it automatically grabs the IP that it sees where it gets installed. So if you install it on a Raspberry Pi, the big Tak server, from Tak.gov, it's going to grab the local IP of your network, which is the 192 IP that is internally. So we have to change this out later on, which can get a little bit complicated, or not complicated, but really annoying, because you have to tell people if they put in the credentials, import the certificate in ATAK, they have to change the IP that's right there, which I really don't like. And it's way easier for me to just type in a web address we're gonna get with DuckDNS and then user with password. That's way easier for me than a certificate that I import, even though the certificate is probably more secure in the long run. And then with OTS, recently it got released the 1.5 version, which has some new stuff about writing your own plugins and some more like QR code capabilities that you can boop in with the QR code, which is really cool. And then in the future, it will also have Docker implementation, so you can spin up your own Docker container, which we're gonna do with the Tak server, which is really nice. And then also groups is gonna come in the next release of OTS. I hope you're still with me. It's a little complicated. Yeah, maybe just listen to the whole video once and then follow it. But as soon as we get into the stuff, it should work that you just follow along. Some theory. We're backtracking a little bit, but we have to put some things straight. ATAK, if you don't know, is basically Google Maps on steroids. It's the little battle map, you know, from Battlefield, Call of Duty. And yeah, you can see people's location, you can chat to each other, and you can put little markers on the map. So, and you have this on you, and you can use that in your airsoft games, whatever you use, whatever you do, but most often in the real world, it's, for example, used by firefighters to organize themselves in case of like a wildfire. It normally uses cellular data to connect to the internet, basically to go up to the server, looks what's happening, and everyone is like talking to the server in the cloud of the internet, which means that you also need cell reception. Then on the other hand, we have Meshtastic, and these two are a little bit different. Some people had some confusions here. Meshtastic is an open source project that uses long range radios. So they create a mesh and they can talk to each other and send GPS location and messages in areas where you have no cell reception. So you make basically your own mesh that is offline, contained with itself, like an intranet, that can share GPS and text messages with each other, and they forward each other messages and GPS locations, so you can extend your mesh way more than, for example, voice radio. Then what I explained in part 1 of this video is how we combine these two, ATAK and Meshtastic. So this is possible through a plugin only on Android, so that all your buddies who run a Meshtastic node and are on the same channel can see each other within ATAK, even though they have no cell reception or SIM installed in their phones whatsoever. And it is very important to know, if you do this, where you combine ATAK with Meshtastic, you don't need an ATAK server. An ATAK server is only needed if you use cellular data. So if you're in an area or on a game field where you know you're gonna have LTE, 4G, 5G, whatever, and you want to run a server for your friends that can send little markers and symbols, you need an ATAK server to get everyone on the same page, so to say. Because sending symbols on Meshtastic is still a little bit unreliable. I heard some good things if you use the channel medium fast. It transmits a lot more data than just long fast, so you can try this out, but sending symbols is still a little janky within Meshtastic. So if you want to rely on sending like an indicator symbol of like, here's the enemy or here's this, and other people to see this, you probably gonna need internet, and with that an ATAK server. Otherwise, you can of course try out with the Meshtastic the medium fast channel. Other people are also experimenting about now is to run an ATAK server locally. This of course could work if you create a giant Wi-Fi network where everyone is running. So if the field has like basically, it's a small field, has a Wi-Fi connection, and people use the Unify network to set up different gateway nodes. This could also work to run locally. I personally have no experience yet, but there's people on Instagram I see who try this out. Okay, I think we talked a lot. To get this running, let's start with installing our first server. Okay, let's do it. First, if you use a Raspberry Pi, you need to download the Raspberry Pi imager. You choose the Raspberry Pi you have. In my instance, I have a Raspberry Pi 4. Then we choose the operating system, and we're going to use Ubuntu server. So we have to go here, other general purpose OS, Ubuntu, and we are using the server. So we don't have a desktop thing, we only have command line. It's fun, guys. Command line is fun. So, and what we are using is this here, not Ubuntu desktop. We use Ubuntu server 24.04 LTS 64-bit. Then we use our storage. In my case, I have a little USB stick for your Raspberry Pi that's going to run your operating system. It's much more recommended to use a USB stick than a micro SD card, because micro SD card, they can't live forever if you have a lot of rewrites on them. So a USB stick works better for that. So you choose that, then you go on next, and it's going to ask you some settings. We have to edit some settings because we have to SSH, we have to remote control over our network, our Raspberry Pi, because we don't have a desktop to look at. We only have command line. We need to get access to this. This is what we're setting up here. You can set up your host name however you want. We can call it Mark 16. We can call it whatever you want. We're gonna go with Mark 16. Then we're gonna make a user Mark 16, and then we have to choose a password. Password 1234. Doesn't really matter. Just something that you, of course, can remember. Then under services, we say, yes, we want to enable SSH. We use password authentication. You can also do a public key generated. This is it's definitely more secure. And we have to do that with a virtual server in a little bit. So I'm going to show you just like password authentication first. It's easier for me. And then we click save. We say yes, and it's gonna flash the stuff on it. I'm not gonna go through with it because I already have it on here, but that's what you do. If it's finished, it's gonna say it's finished. You take this and you put it in your Raspberry Pi. You put this on your router, and you need a power supply that at least supports the power delivery of the Raspberry Pi in your router. So that's a little bit complicated because every router is different. You need to set a static IP for your Raspberry Pi so the IP doesn't change. This is in every router on a different page, and I can't really tell you how to exactly do it with your model. Maybe you can Google this. There should be an explanation on how to do this, but this is very important. Plus, you need to be able to open some ports so the Raspberry Pi is able to talk outside, meaning that the router knows that if someone is calling this port, to forward it to the Raspberry Pi, which runs the ATAK server, so this all works. So if you have that set up, you can then SSH into your Raspberry Pi. For that, I actually should put this back on the router so you can see. Just give me a second. So we're gonna do it once, and then we're gonna do it for the virtual server, and we should be fine. So to get into your Raspberry Pi, so you can follow along, we're going to do it with the virtual server in a second. I need to go and see what's the IP address on my router. So I need to log in. I use Proton Pass for that, which is very good. LAN, I already have it set up. This is my Raspberry Pi. It's called Mark 18. And I can see here the local IP of my Raspberry Pi. And then I open a command line and we say SSH user Mark 18, which we set up earlier, at, and then the IP, and it should give me the password prompt. If you're connecting for the first time, it wants to do a key handshake, just say yes. Then I put my password in, and it's going to take a little moment, and boom, we're in. So now I'm here in my Raspberry Pi and we can start installing stuff. Virtual server. And after you got it, you have to set up also an SSH key. It's a little bit more complicated than doing it with the Raspberry Pi. What means complicated? It's workable, but there should be a tutorial on the website of your thing. For example, Strato here is of course in German. It gives me for Mac exactly how I do this. And then I need to take this key, put the key in, and everything's gonna get nuked. So I'm gonna do new install. So let's SSH into our server real quick. So this is SSH root at the IP of my server or your local IP of your Raspberry Pi. And of course, you created a server, so you don't need root. So I'm going to do that. It's going to do a fingerprint. I'm going to say yes. And I'm in as root. Now I need to make a user and give this user administrative capabilities. We're going to do this command sudo usermod sudo pfc. Boop, worked. And now we can change users with su pfc. And now we're in root of pfc, which we do cd. And now we're in home. There's nothing in there. We're good to go. So this is how you would start out now with a Raspberry Pi, because we created a user there already during the installation. First thing to do, sudo apt update to see if there's any updates for Ubuntu or anything that's running on there. You should always run this before you do anything. And then after this is done, we're going to do sudo apt upgrade to then also install these. Okay, so now that's done. Now we can start installing OTS, and that's super easy. We're just going to go OpenTAKServer. And we find the GitHub and then also the documentation, but we're going to look at the GitHub real quick. Here it says OpenTAKServer, yet another open source TAK server, blah, blah, blah. The current features, planned features, federation, groupers, and channels. We talked about this. And then here's the Ubuntu curl, how to install. And then down here is the documentation. We're just going to jump right into the documentation because everything we need to know is in here. We're going to go OpenTAK installer, and we have a sweet little curl here where it takes a bunch of stuff from this website and then executes it. So let's do this. We're just going to take this and press enter. And then off it goes. And we'll be right back. All right, now it's asking if we want to install ZeroTier. ZeroTier is a VPN service to create your own secure network. We can do this if we already have a ZeroTier account because we need to paste the network ID in there now. I'm going to show you later when we set up the big Tak server version of how to do it with Tailscale. I think Tailscale basically the same thing as ZeroTier, but the backend web UI is a little bit nicer and it seems to be a little easier than ZeroTier, but in the end, they're the same service. So we're going to press no in this instant. Now, it's good to have a VPN then in the end to secure your server so no one really can't access any other pods than you. Or if you only want to access your server with your phone in a very secure way, then you can use this. Do we like to install a Mumble server? Mumble server is the voice server. I'm not gonna really use it. I didn't do any testing with it yet. I'm just gonna say no in this instance. You can do yes, doesn't really matter. It's gonna go through a bunch more installing, but I'm gonna try to keep it a little bit like faster here. Now it's setting up the last couple things. We're gonna look into the Mumble server and all different kind of stuff, how to configure and what to do with ATAK, how to integrate sensors, webcams, traffic cameras and stuff like that in a separate video. This is just the install video, so I'm going to see this later. Now, finished configuration, RabbitMQ. The MQTT server is up. So setup complete, OpenTAKServer is running. You can access the web UI at IP. This is super handy. If you have it installed on a Raspberry Pi, this is now showing you the local IP. And we need to get the web UI accessible outside your network. And we're going to do this anyways. I'm going to show you even to do this with your server IP. So we're going to grab that really quick and do a new and boop it and see. Okay, good. We don't have a certificate yet to have it HTTPS. It's only HTTP. We're going to do advanced. We're going to accept the risk and continue. We got it. So this is it. OpenTAKServer, username, password. The first password is administrator and password. And you can also find that in the documentation. Let's see, I don't even remember authentication, I think. Yeah, here it says administrator account is this username, administrator and password. So let's jump in really quick and see if it's working with administrator and password. And we're in. This is your ATAK server. It's already up and running. This is amazing. We can see the map. Yes, we can scroll around. This is where we can see AUDs, data packages. We can upload data packages, video streams, video recordings, even a Meshtastic tab, missions. Then admin control. Here we can just add a user really quick. So we have that. We have the user. Let's go with PFC. Password is test1234. Confirm password test1234. We're going to put it as a role as a user. Add user. We're going to log in with this later. And yeah, that's basically it. Then this is the new thing here, the plugin manager and plugins. And then down here as well, you can download the Trust Store if you want to also use a certificate to log into this. And then there's the ATAK QR code, which you can now generate to boot people in. Really cool, also with iTag. But we have to do some more stuff to get this running. We need to set up DuckDNS, so we don't have an IP we need to put in the web address if you want to add, because I find that very confusing. I can remember a web address like xyz.duckdns.org way better than a string of IPs, which is 217.154 and so on. So we're going to set this up. This is also helpful for if you're using a Raspberry Pi, because then you get all the stuff outside your local network for people to use outside your network. And then we're also going to create some certificates so we can use HTTPS. There's a little bit of stuff going on. So let's start with DuckDNS. To reserve ourselves a domain, because DuckDNS is completely free, which is really cool. We go to DuckDNS and then we make a new account. Okay, let's sign in with Google, create a new account. I already have a DuckDNS account, and now we're in DuckDNS and we need to make a domain. We can make up to 5 domains. So we just need to think of something now that we can later then use to log in and to also find the web UI backend. Let's try VPS ATAK or whatever. Yeah, So it registered my new domain VPS ATAK.duckdns.org. I think that's really easy to remember. Just choose something and see if it's free. But what it did is I already put in my IP I have running for my stuff. But we need to exchange this for your Raspberry Pi's IP and or your server IP. But because this is substance to change, not with my virtual server, but if you're running this locally, this can happen that your service provider will give you a new IP every 24 hours or so. So you probably at home don't have a static IP, so this doesn't work. But DuckDNS gives us a little thing we can configure it on the server, so it always checks if the IP has changed, and if the IP changed, it will update it right here without us putting it in every day. To install this DuckDNS service, we're going to use Docker. And Docker is really interesting because it's a service which runs virtual containers where every container is for themselves, and they can't reach out onto different services unless you allow it. The whole Docker thing is really complex and can get really, really fun, but you need to know we're basically making a little virtual box of this program that is contained with itself, and you can have many different Docker containers running on your system, even two that are completely the same next to each other without them knowing of each other. It's a really cool system, but we need to set it up real quick. It's really easy. There is like the official Docker Ubuntu thing, and we're just gonna do this whole command here, which you just copy over from the Docker install page, and we're just gonna boop this in, and it's gonna install Docker for us. So now, after we got all the repositories set, we need to copy one more thing in. Do you want to continue? Yes, I want to install Docker. It's gonna fetch all the stuff. It's going to take a second, and we're done. So now Docker is installed. Now we need to add our user to a Docker group so we don't execute these Docker containers as admin. This is important for installing stuff later, but this is pretty easy. We're just going to do it how they do it in the documentation. It's a sudo group add Docker. It already exists for me because I already did it to test it. So we're going to go sudo usermod -ag Docker and then user pfc. And now we have all the privileges. And now to test this, we're going to spin up the test container, which is docker run hello world, docker run hello world. Okay, we had to do the new group Docker, then Docker run hello world, and boop, it pulled the image. It couldn't find the image, it pulled the image, and then it says hello from Docker. So now we're set up to go on with DuckDNS. Okay, so now that we have Docker running, we have to create you can create these Docker Compose files which have a bunch of install instruction, and then Docker takes these and makes this into a container, so to speak. We probably need to install as well Docker Compose, and Docker Compose is also installed through the Docker docs here. We're gonna list our dictionaries. We have OTS, so we're gonna make a new one. We call it DuckDNS. Then we're gonna see it probably. We're gonna go in it with cd DuckDNS. So we're gonna do sudo apt install docker -compose, and it's installing Docker Compose for us. And then when we go to the Docker Hub, where a lot of Docker containers that are already set up by people you can use, which is really easy, we're going to use the DuckDNS container someone already created, but we're going to inject our own little things. So the Docker container, of course, is only running for us. So, and if we look at this here real quick, this is just on the Docker Hub, Linux server DuckDNS, 9 days ago, over 100 million downloads. So this is the official one. We're going to go down and we're going to look for the Docker Compose, and we want to copy this. So we're going to copy this over, and then we can see, okay, service, DuckDNS is the service, then it pulls the image, the latest image, the container name is going to be DuckDNS, net, blah, 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 but we need to put in our subdomains and our tokens. So the container knows which network we're talking about. So this is really easy. We're just going to go to our DuckDNS, and we have our little domain here. And so we're just going to go to subdomain. As the domain we just created is VPS ATAK, and then the token can be found also on DuckDNS. We have a very long token. We take this, boop, and now we have this. We're going to copy this over, and now we're going to create the file from which the Docker container is going to be created. So sudo nano, and we're going to call it docker-compose.yml. Boop. Now we're going to take our DuckDNS container info and put that in there. And then we're going to exit out of it, say yes for saving, file name fine, docker-compose up minus in the background. And it's pulling it. Okay, so let's see if it worked. It would work if we put now in the subdomain we created, or the domain, and it would give us the web UI. So let's try it out. https://vpsattack.duckdns.com. We're going to enter this, and we got the backend. Maybe now you need to accept the risk as well, because we don't have certificates yet. So you have to go advanced, accept the risk of accessing this website because it's not officially certified, which we're going to do right now, which is really easy because the documentation tells us how to do it as well. And we should just follow that. So we go to Let's Encrypt tab, and we're going to install the certbot. So we're going to put that in. I have it already installed because I had to test something. And then we're going to do the sudo blah, 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 blah. So in the install, you just need to say yes, because you have to give some space away to be that the certbot is going to be installed. So then we're going to do stop nginx, stop nginx. So nginx is our web server, and for the certificates to being issued, we need to stop the web server. Sudo system control stop nginx. It should be stopping momentarily. Now it's stopped. We can check if it's stopped if we go for status nginx. It says loaded, but it's not running. It's active, inactive. So that's perfect. Now we have a very long string here where we copy this over, and we're gonna exit out of this with Command C, Control C, sudo certbot cert only, and in the end we need to add our domain, which is VPS attack.duckdns.org. Let's boop this away. It asks us for an email address, so it will email us also if the certificates are running out, because they can only be issued for like 3 months. So it will keep us up to date. We're going to do, and then please read terms and service. You must agree and register. I do agree. Yes. Yes, they can have my email address. Okay, now it's requesting a certificate, and we need to wait for a second. Okay, we're done. It took a little while, but it said account registered, requesting certificate, successfully received certificate. And it shows us the key and where it is saved. And we have to go now into our OpenTAK stuff, config files, and change them. So we need to point them to exactly those. But this is also written in the documentation. So if we just go to the next thing, it says next change these following lines in. So we're grabbing this, and we're gonna do sudo nano for text editor, paste in the location, enter, and there we can already see it. We have here the SSL certificate, which is self-issued, doesn't work. So we need to change these lines, exactly these 2 lines we see right now, to where our stuff is right now, which we see over here. So let's do that really quick. Here, lots of stuff can go quickly wrong. You have to be really careful to leave the semicolon don't have anything wrong. Yeah, we got this. Grab this. This is just the location. Go down, edit this. See, I almost left the semicolon. And now we paste this and we change here our domain name, of course, which is, as it says above, VPS ATAK.duckDNS.org. Control X, want to get out of there, save, yes, enter to write. Okay, now in the docu it also says, finally in blah, 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 change the same 2 lines in the server block for port 443. Don't change them in 8443. So keep that in mind. Sudo nano, then the path. Now we have to scroll down a little bit and find the 433 location. There we go. Listen 433. And here we're going to do the same thing. Okay, so I'm going to take the full chain. Swoop. Put that in. Change the domain to VPS ATAK.duckDNS.org. Then change this one to the priv key. Now don't copy the semicolon because I already have it. Just be sure and then change VPS ATAK.duckDNS.org. We copied this double. We delete that. Happened to me before. Command X, yes. Then now we have these changed, and now to start Nginx back up or Nginx, we're gonna go this, but we need to do a sudo system control start Nginx, and I think it worked. So status Nginx active and running. Z out of this, and then let's see. Okay, in case you have some DNS hiccups where you don't see the website directly, try to flush your DNS, try to remove your cache from your browser. I had a couple problems right now, but make sure it's HTTPS VPS ATAK.duckDNS.org, and we're reaching the back end, and there's no certificate error, so we have, yeah, a certificate, which is great. We have HTTPS. So, and then password is password, and we're gonna log in. Don't save. We're in the back end. Then under admin users, you should reset your password. But now that this is running, we should try to connect it with our ATAK and see if we can actually get on the server, because this is what we're doing this all about. Let's log into ATAK and see if we can reach the server. Open up ATAK, settings, and then network preferences, tech servers. Let's go 3 dots in the corner, add, and we're gonna call this, ATAK server, server VPS. So then the address is the address we registered at DuckDNS. So VPS, or you could put here the IP, but I find that really confusing. So it would work with the IP here. And then use authentication, username is the user we just created here. This is PFC. Next, this was test 1, 2, 3, 4. Done. Enroll client certificate. Uncheck enroll with pre-configured trust. Advanced SSL 8089 is correct, the server port. And then we press OK. And pray. Registering device with ATAK server. This usually takes quite a while as well. Let's hope the heck it works. Okay, we have registration complete. ATAK server registration succeeded. Okay, and we are actually, as it looks, online. Can that be? Let's check in the back end. Let's go to the dashboard. Let's see EUDs. We have a EUD registered. Username PFC. It's an Android. So we can see that it worked. And then we're going to go into the functionality that you can put data packages here. For example, I usually upload here the ATAK maps I talked about in the last video. You can upload these here and you can, for example, install them on enrollment. So everyone who comes into your server for the first time gets the ATAK maps automatically without doing anything, and they're downloaded and they can use the Google Hybrid, for example, which are not offline maps. They're just pointing to where to get the maps. So ATAK knows. There's still some stuff to do. You have to create your offline maps yourself or your rubber sheets. We're going to talk about this more in upcoming videos. But it works. You have OTS running with a certificate under DuckDNS. I had a little bit of some headaches because I had some DNS issues, but I think it's my internet right now. Something's going on over here. Anyways, this is how it works. If there's any questions to OTS, please leave them down in the description or go over to the OpenTAKServer Discord channel. They are super nice over there, extremely helpful. I talked with Enzo, the creator, a bunch, and he troubleshooted and helped me in any way possible. So he's really nice and really behind this project. Please leave him some love in the Discord. Or of course, I have my own Discord. You can come there and do your shenanigans as well. But we're gonna elaborate on this more. And now let's create the original OG Tak server. Okay, now let's install the OG Big Tak server. We're going to use an install script from CloudRF and this guy who put this together. This is really good, makes it a lot easier than going through all the steps. So we're going to go onto the GitHub, CloudRF, and then it's the Tak server. And this is a Docker wrapper for the official OG Tak server. So what we need is to download the Docker of the official server from the Tak.gov website. So if we go on the website, Tak.gov, products, Tak server, you can just create an account. Anyone can do this, even though it might not look like that, but this is the civil version. Anyone can do this. So you could just log in. You might need to get a verification code. Tak server Docker 5.4 release. Not the hardened, just the release. We need to download that, and this is what we need to put onto our server for the installation in a second. So download that. We're going to go back to the GitHub and see what is next. Because yeah, they're checking the MD5 checksums, which is really cool. So they're sure that you are not installing any weird things. Here it says the requirements, 4 GB of memory, so you can also install this on your Raspberry, no problem. Okay, so let's start with the prerequisites. We're gonna copy this, go onto our server and cd out of here, yeah, and just boop it in there and press enter. Ask for password. And it's starting to set up our stuff. Good, we are all set up and we are also CD'd into the Tak server folder, we can see, because that was the last thing. We changed directories. Hard for German to say. So then we need to have the Docker thing. I'm just gonna boop it over and see if we're missing anything. Nothing installed. Okay, we have everything, so we set it up earlier. I'm just making sure that we're not forgetting anything. So now installation. But before we run the installation, because we installed OTS on this before, we need to remove some stuff and stop some services. Otherwise, they're gonna interject themselves because they're using some of the same ports. So you can't run both of these at the same time yet, because OTS is not in a Docker. There's some overlay. You can obviously remap the ports, but I think this is a little bit too much for right now. So I'm just gonna stop the OTS services really quick. Sudo system control stop OpenTAKServer, then disable OpenTAKServer, and then we also need to do the same with Nginx. Stop Nginx, and then also disable sudo apt remove rabbit mq server. Yes. Okay, now if we go back to the backend, it should be gone, and it is. The last thing, it says installation, you should copy your downloaded Tak server into the Tak server directory. This is a little complicated, but I'm going to show you how I solve this problem. I use Transmit. Transmit is an SFTP program, any kind of FTP client you can use. You can do this in command line, but it's a little bit more complicated than you think. Want to connect to our VPS, ATAK VPS, SFTP. Next, server address is our IP. Then the user is root, but we don't have a password. And we need to point it to the key we already used. You guys remember we created this SSH key. This is where we need to point the thing right now. So let's do that real quick. Import keys. It's in users. Then your user.ssh, and it's the ID RSR, not the pub. And we import that. We have this here, worked, okay? Out of here, take this, use this key, okay, save. And now let's try to connect. And we're in root. That's wrong because we don't want to be in root. We go up, perfect. And now it said we need to copy the server into the directory. So we're gonna go on home, it's always in home, then PFC, and then we have Tak server here. So these are the stuff we did earlier. Here we can see it just with the, like UI is a little bit easier to do than just command line to get stuff from one place to another. But this is, what we did earlier. Then here's the Tak server, and we need to put our downloaded file in there. So we go in downloads, we take the Tak Docker release, and we boop it over into there. And it should upload, and it says only 6 minutes left. Okay, uploaded. It's in the directory. We can see it right here. It's in the Tak server, how it told us to do. Let's try run the script and see what happens. You never find out otherwise. Let's clear this up, and let's boop in the script. And here we go. Here it checked the checksum, so it found the file, it checked it, and pausing let you know it's going to start installing. Okay, and we're going to let it run. Here we can see proceeding with IP. It directly catches the IP from our server. So if you're installing this on your Raspberry Pi, this is where it grabs the internal network ID, the 192, whatever your IP is of the Raspberry in your local network. This is super annoying because later everyone who wants to connect to your server needs to correct this IP when they log in. If you do this on a VPS, on a private, like rented virtual private server that is rented like this one, it gets injected basically into the files correctly. So this is a huge plus of spending $4 a month instead of 61s. Oh, there it's creating our little Tak server databases. Those are Docker containers, and we're going to have a look at them in a little bit. Here it's again catching our IP for the certificates. Super nice. This is a problem with your local IP from your Pi again. It already creates 2 users, so we can have 2 different kinds of user joining. So we have user 1 and user 2. Okay, here we go. That's it. So we have it installed. It gives us some very important information you should probably write down. So we have to import the admin.p12 certificate into our browser. The documentation will tell us how to do this in a second, because this is added security, so only your browser can access the server. So we're just going to take all this. Okay. We're gonna put this here for the time being, but let's get the admin certificate installed so we can go into the server. So if we scroll down in the docu, here's also listed all the ports you need to open in your router or in the firewall of your server online. I'm going to show you how to do that on the server in a second, but yeah, we have the successful installation. Now we want to do the admin login, and I'm using Google Firefox, and yeah, you can see it's a little bit more than just this. So let's do this. Settings, private security, certificates. So settings, private security, scroll down, security, view, certificates. Okay, so now we need to import our admin.p12, and this one you'll find it says needs to be copied from Tak.gov files. So if we get into transmit, and if we refresh the Tak server folder, we see there's the admin p12, and we're just gonna download this really quick in our downloads folder, or we're gonna go down here into Tak certs files, and it said admin p12. We can also use that. We're going to say replace. This is exactly what we need. So back to Firefox settings, import, then downloads admin p12, open. Then it says me password. What was a password? But it says in the documentation it's ATAK. And sign in. Worked. So here it also says default password is ATAK. Authorities. Scroll down to tech, and we need to edit trust, and everything needs this certificate can identify websites. We need to see that it is turned on everywhere. Yes, yes, and yes. You press OK, and now it should work. So let's see. Let's take our little link here and go to that website. Requested to identify myself. Yes, I have it. Okay. Boom, we're in. This is the web UI of the OG Tak server. It makes my eyes bleed every time, but you have a lot of different stuff available right then and there. You have federation here, but yeah, this is how it looks like. You definitely need to get used to this. And now what you have here, now if you want to have, here's the users, for example, you can manage the users. We have the admin, we have the groups, we can add a new group, we can say team 1, we can add team 1, and then we can assign users, like add user, we can then assign users to these groups, and so on. So we're gonna go over how to work with this a little in a different video, but you have it now working. We need to see if we can actually get on it with our ATAK device. And with the OG Tak server, which I don't like, is now that we need a certificate to boop into it. We can't just put in the credentials and that's it. Of course, with like a certificate like this is way more secure, but for me it's more annoying because I need to download it. I need to put it somewhere like in the Google Drives, and I need to download it on this phone, and it's like, bleh, I don't like it. We need our little zip data package with the manifest. So we're gonna go into our transmit again, and then here we use the user, and then it says our IP of the server.zip. We're taking this one, we're downloading it, then we're going into downloads, and we're gonna upload it in Google Drive. Now we have it, it's right here, so let's download it. I put it into this folder. Download, item will be downloaded. Okay, one file. I'm just like so bad in Android, it's horrible. Okay, let's go to ATAK. We're gonna go import local SD. And there's the downloads. We want the user manifest, this one. I'm just gonna say okay. Choose how to handle it. Copy, move, copy. Data package added. So it's reading the manifest, and I think we see green. I think we are on the server. Let's see metrics. Connected clients 1. We are on the server. Let's go down to settings, network preferences, Tak servers. We can see our Tak server, and it's correct with the IP of our Ubuntu server that's in the internet. But if you used an Raspberry Pi. This could be that this is your local IP, so the 192 ... whatsoever. Then you need to change this to the DuckDNS if you choose to set up DuckDNS the same way. This is still possible. You need this to be pointing to your ATAK server. This is a little complicated and I don't recommend doing this. I recommend if you're using a big ATAK server, just do it on this. This is a lot easier than trying to troubleshoot to get it talking to your Raspberry Pi. Tailscale. So there's only one last thing to do, and this is to secure our server, especially on the internet, because now for me, my server has all ports open at all times, which means anyone could really try to brute force attack themselves into there, especially if I have sensible data, if I'm running my cloud service over this, if I'm uploading pictures, you know what, people could get access to this. And we can use Tailscale with that, and it's actually quite easy to set it up. We have to put on the firewall, which is front-ended from my service provider. This is way better than having an IP tables through Linux, which is also very complicated. It's better to have a firewall up from your service provider and then just open the ports that we actually need. So we're gonna go to firewall and we see it's inactive. We're gonna do an active. All right, so let's create some new rules. We have to open the SSH port, obviously, otherwise we are locking ourselves out, and the SSH port is 22. So any protocol, we're gonna do TCP, port range 22 to 22, next rule. So now after blocking all the ports, except the ones we said that are okay, we need a way to access our server via a VPN. And we're gonna use Tailscale for that. So let's set it up really quickly because it's actually quite easy. I did it for the first time yesterday and we're gonna try it again. So tailscale.com. Get started, it's free. Sign up with, I'm gonna take Google. No, let's say I don't use a VPN ever. And then we're gonna do YouTube. And then add your first device. So now we have Linux. First of all, we want to actually add our computer to our network. So we need to download their app onto our computer. And then we're gonna add account and we're gonna log in as it says here with our thing we just created. Now, connect device. Yes, we want to connect device with PhoenixFeatherAirsoft. Login successful. We can see in our private network, there's one thing. It's our MacBook. And now we need to add our Linux server to it as well. We do this with a key we can also generate, so it's quite easy. We're gonna skip this introduction and then we're gonna go to settings, personal settings keys, and we're gonna create an auth key. Description, whatever, server, we don't really need anything. We can say it's reusable and blah, 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 but we're gonna do just a one-time thing. Generate key, then we have a key here. We're gonna copy this one, grab the install curl, boop that in. Installing Tailscale really quick on our server. Okay, sudo tailscale up, it already tells us, but I have a little command here which we can directly join our network. First, we take the command, we put it in our little editor, and then we need to exchange the key. So I'm gonna take our key, go back to the editor, put our own key in, copy the command. We should put this in. Seems like it worked. And boom, we're in. So now we have both machines in the same private network. How we can test this really quick, for example, to showcase this, is we're gonna install Portainer. Portainer is also a cool little thing that helps you with your Docker container and gives a web UI to the whole Docker container thing, and it can make containers for you. It's actually really cool. Download this really quick and then I can show you what we actually did with our VPN. So it's pulling the container, it's starting it, creating it, status, blah, 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 blah. Let's see, Docker PS. Looks like it's running. We see DuckDNS is running, ATAK Server, and Portainer is running. And it says also the ports that it's using. And here it says it's then usable with localhost 9443. We can take the IP address of our server from Tailscale, put this in -9443, HTTPS, yes, advanced, accept the risk, and it's sending us to our Portainer login, through the IP of our Tailscale. So now we're just gonna do admin, do a password, create the user, get started, and then we can already see what's going on here. The dashboard, we have 5 containers running. This is the hello world from all the way in the beginning. We can actually delete this, but we can also see that we have our DuckDNS, our Portainer, which is this, and then the both Tak servers. Yeah, but that's it. And now we're in through a VPN, not through the IP of the actual server. So this was a massive video. We installed 2 different Tak servers. This is just to get them running so you can try it out, and now you can start experimenting and maybe like boop your friends on it, try to build a Meshtastic gateway bridge. I highly recommend to read through all the documentation on the OTS. Also read the documentation of the big OG Tak server. There's a lot of stuff, and this is really getting complicated. I'm also not everywhere there yet, but I hope, you learned a little bit and you could follow along. I hope I didn't make any mistakes. This video to film took a long time. You never really know what's going on behind the scenes because sometimes your DNS doesn't work and I couldn't get on the website, but I could do it on my phone, you never know. I hope I didn't do any mistakes. If I did, please put them down in the comments below. Help a brother out. Other than that, I hope you got something out of this. This is why I do this. And then let's see us again in part 3, where we go a little bit more into ATAK and what's possible and how to put stuff together. Also the WebTAK connection to there's like CloudTAK I'm trying to figure out. It's not that easy, but it looks cool, so you can access your entire thing through a browser. With OTS you have something where you can use WinTAK, iTAK and ATAK to get a feeling for it, build your own first rubber maps, do your first little things, your experiments, and then we're going to talk about how I set my server up for an actual op, where I can give people all my map materials, all the building names and so on, just very easily through like data packages, for example. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed it. Have a good one. See you in the next video. Whew.